Hey, everybody, welcome to Experience Weekly Data Talk, a show where we talk with data science leaders from around the world. Today, we're talking with Jen Underwood about the art of AI storytelling. Jen Underwood is the founder of Impact Analytix. She's a senior director at Data Robot and a writer for Information Week. Jen, thank you so much for being part of our conversation today.
Well, thanks for having me. I think I see Miko too on the line, which is really exciting.
Yeah, Miko is awesome. She's always commenting and a great part of our community. Love having Miko here. So Jen, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started working in AI?
Oh, sure. So I've been in the analytics industry a little over 20 years. I guess once you hit 20, you don't want to tell people anymore. But yeah, I grew up implementing these solutions for companies and then moved to vendor side building solutions at Microsoft in this space. Went independent for a while and certainly enjoy keeping up with, finally, I feel like 10 years ago is what I was talking about, or 15 years ago. And I'm like, oh, finally the world's caught up that, not always to drive looking in your rearview mirror, to actually look ahead. So, yeah, but that's how I got started. I absolutely love it. And it's really, it's magical right now that we're finally catching up.
What has it been? I mean, since you've been in the space for a good period of time, you've kind of seen the evolution before these terms like data science, data scientist were kind of thrown around.
Yeah.
What has that been like for you to kind of see this evolution?
Oh, it's really cool. So it's been very fun. I think we called it decision science back in the day, or operations decision. I'm trying to remember back then, but it was data mining. So it's like all these different same terms are used, and they're just put a different label on it, whatever the hot label is this year. But I knew that the time was coming when the big data, it was when all the Hadoop solutions were being talked about in 2010. I'm like, oh, it's the right time. Finally, it's the right time for, it's data mining, predictive analytics. That's going to come on stage because you can't physically, possibly manually analyze anything anymore. And it right place, right time. So it's, for me, I always feel like we still lagged a little bit. I thought it would happen faster. Still think it's going to happen faster. But that's when I knew right time, right place for this specific space.
And how have you seen like kind of organizations kind of change as they brought on like data science teams and CDOs and people in like senior level positions managing data?
Well, interesting you say that, because when I was, during that same time frame, at the time, self-service BI, things about the Tableaus of the world. A product I was building at the time was Power Pivot in Excel. Allowed self-service BI users to connect to data sources and create their own reports. And you had a lot of pushback on governance about these. And oh no, they're not going to get the models right. And they won't. But and I remember these conversations with large enterprises around the world saying, well, we're not going to, give business analysts and give these folks, data analysts, keys to the data kingdom. And within a year or two, I'd say the conversations with the same companies changed so dramatically. We need to give them keys to the kingdom, but we have to govern it. We got to know what they're doing. And we have to roll this out responsibly. So I see the same patterns now happening again with AI. We know we want to do this. We know we want to enable a citizen data scientist. But there's a lot of pushback from data scientists. And there's going to be, and even I see things and I'm like, oh gosh, we're going to have a lot of bad models out there. And you're just like, oh, we just have to do this responsibly.
What are some of these pushbacks, these things that you're seeing right now? I mean, some of them could just be, proper pushback. People want to do things responsibly. They want to make sure that things are being implemented properly. What are some of the challenges you're seeing as organizations are looking to bring on AI into their organization?
So the type of pushback, right, will be if they do have someone. So it's really hard to truly get a data scientist. They really are commodity, or not commodity. They really are rare to really have one. A lot of people that say they are, but they really just did a Coursera class or something. They're really not, a true data scientist. But what you do is you'll have folks, if they really have them, they push back. Oh, no. This is something only we can do. similar to the IT pro pushback of, oh, no, you can't analyze data. Only we can build these models and things. So really similar types of challenges there. The other challenge that we'll find in this particular state is the tool's not always letting you know it's so easy to do something incorrectly. And we do want to empower folks to make decisions, but we're hearing a lot in this space on things like bias. So if you have no idea, no guardrails, or no way to even know that your sample's not correct and it's biased and all these different issues, because you just point click, wow, look at that. That was a model, and I know how to do data science now.
Mm.
A lot of that going on. Right? Like, oh, I'm not sure which algorithm to use, and you're like, oh dear. So we're going to see a lot of bad things happening too. So we're going to have to deal with some of the trust issues and explainability, and that's where explainability of these models and understanding what went into it from the very beginning to what does the output mean. That's where the storytelling angle would come in into this particular conversation. But those are definitely some of the challenges we'll be running into.
It's interesting that you are talking about the data science role, because that is kind of the hot term that's been thrown around. It's in a lot of different headlines about the growth of data science, data scientists. I think Forbes magazine called it the sexiest job. Yeah. And you were just saying how some people call themselves data scientists, but they really aren't. And I'm kind of curious, like in your experiences, you've worked with people across your organization, and some people are claiming to be data scientists, or they work in data scientist positions. What are some of the signals that come to you and you're like, yeah, this person really isn't a data scientist, even though they're calling themselves one?
Ooh, so that's a good one, right? So I do think, yeah, and it's funny, we talk about this because a lot of times when dealing with solutions, you'll come back, or you'll talk to somebody, and then you'll come back and you'll, I talked to that group a year ago, and what's different now? And because a lot of the business doesn't necessarily know what a data scientists do, they sit in their little silos and they don't always coordinate with everybody. You'll hire someone that might not be. They did the Coursera, they did, I did it 2 years, so I'm just as guilty. I am not a true data scientist. I have a 2-year, I'm a fanatic. I've been playing with it for 10 years. I'm a wannabe. I am a citizen data scientist. I'm not a real one. But what happens is they'll go and they'll lock them up in the room, and you won't get deployed models. So if you look at the stats, there's some really interesting stats out there and how few models get deployed. And somebody that really knows what they're doing, they will get some things done, and you'll see the effort, and you'll see things happening. They'll integrate with the business subject matter experts. They'll infuse it into the applications they're using, and you can measure the impact of what's happening. People that don't know what they're doing, they can spin their wheels for a long, long time, and then finally someone's like, what are those people really doing? Have they delivered me anything of value? That's one of the ways that you'll expose them right away. Because they're really not delivering anything.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to take a course and to pass some tests. It's another thing to actually put it into practice and do it in a real life business scenario. That takes time. It takes experience. And so, yeah, that can definitely, I guess, shine a light on somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing. When it comes to storytelling, what are some of the ways that, any advice for those that are looking to, I guess, present data, tell a data story in a way that's going to get traction within the business, get some buy-in from the business leaders to actually turn that data and insight that the data scientist is sharing and making it actionable, and I guess just securing buy-in, making it believable?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm so thrilled that Miko's here. Maybe we can do some joint work together this year. The one of the things that I'm finding is sometimes the results are staggering. They're amazing when folks really know what they're doing and they apply it. But the business still doesn't comprehend. There's this big gap, and Gartner has a data literacy program right now, because there's this really big gap between the language that a data scientist speak and the language that business speaks. And it shouldn't even just be at the end. It's through every step of the process. So from defining what is the business case, what is success? It's not the ROC curve or the AOC or the RMSE metric. What is it defining that correct measure in business terms and success in the business terms. And then through each phase, well, this is the input we had. This was the missing information that we had. So understanding what they're looking at through each phase of the project in making those decisions. And it's through the whole life cycle, not just at the end. And that's one of the beauties with storytelling. It's you storytell from the very beginning of why you're doing this, what the impact is going to be, why it's successful, what went into it, where the errors are happening, what does the model do well, what doesn't it do well. All models are imperfect. I don't care what anybody says. The world we live in is imperfect. So it's just guesstimating this imperfect world. But you need to understand what are the strengths of the model and the weaknesses, because the human still guides the machine. And communicating that in human language through the whole end to end, that's where excellent storytelling skills that I see Miko and other thought leaders in that space, I'm hoping to bridge and bring them now to the next level of the journey, and make it so it's not so scary. It's actually, they're the best people. The people that have been doing data storytelling today are the best people to help bridge this huge gap between the data scientist and the business.
What would you say for the person who's really struggling with this storytelling? Because you wrote an article I thought was really funny. It was called like "Stop Talking Gobbledygook."
Yeah.
What's the gobbledygook? What is causing so much trouble?
Yeah,
Dialogue.
it's so funny because I work with so many different vendors. I've worked with all these different vendors that have this these really cool technologies, and it's like, well, we've done this, and again, they're saying things. If I think about it from whether it's a marketing perspective or you're not looking at, when you buy a car, you're not looking under the engine. You're not getting these pictures of the engine unless you're a mechanic. Maybe then you're like, oh, wow, look at on this thing and this. And I keep hearing data scientists talk about, how accurate they are, how all these things are. And I'm like, wow, that meant nothing to me. Why do I care? If you think about the car analogy, is it a convertible? Is it not a convertible? Can I take it into the woods? Inspire me. What can I do with this thing? So when I talk about gobbledygook, I'm talking about this ridiculousness of, well, we use this regression curve, or we use this deep learning TensorFlow, and this is the lift. And I'm like, tell me in business terms, and how can I use this, and why do I give? Why do I care? Basically. And that's what's really missing. And that's gobbledygook. I'm like, oh God, here we go again. I don't care.
And I like that you also said that the data story, the storytelling, and the whole data project, like I guess it's a long running conversation that needs to happen. It's not something that happens at the tail end.
No.
I think we get so focused on what was the result and waiting for that presentation to happen. But Jen, what you're saying is there's actually a story that needs to be told from the very beginning of the project and running through it. Why is that so important?
Yeah, and when I do look at the really good storytellers that are out there, they talk about storyboarding the whole thing. What are your goals? How are you going to prove your goals? It's almost like a lawyer in a case, and you're saying, well, what am I going to prove my case, and how am I going to make my case? But we're also applying this to the value to the business as well. So we're not just saying this is our case and these are all the things we're going to try. It's also communicating these are our limitations that we might have, or we know the model that we came up with this, but we know we could do this, and that. So it's really applying it throughout the whole process. And I'd say it's an epic failure to just come to the end and say, oh yeah, we built this model and not have the business involved. That's a super big failure.
So what are some things that somebody who is new to the process, this is maybe their first time initiating a data project, they want to be successful with it, they just don't have experience, like what you just said, the years of experience of ever taking a project from start to finish in a business. They want to make sure that it's successful, and they believe in what they're doing. They love the data. They've been working on it. What would be some advice you'd share with them to help them succeed in helping their data project see the light of day and actually become something that the business takes for helping them grow?
So I think one thing is we do have a lot of, we call them they're capable, they're motivated, they're very passionate folks that love this work. I was certainly one of the geekos that was doing that back in the day. Getting them to learn a little bit about the geeky stuff, just to understand a little bit about how it works, because then it'll help the input to the model. So if they just know enough about, really refining and how does this work, some education there, when they're ready to do a pilot, making sure your pilot use case has business impact. It's not boiling the ocean. It's very, it is something the business will value. So it's a high value, and most of these projects are high value. So the returns will be big. And then having that executive sponsorship, but also partnering, at least for the first one. Just partner with a group. Usually these are very short, initial pilot projects, so that you can learn cradle to grave all these little steps from somebody that does know what they're doing. Oh, wow, I got to think about the model afterwards, and that the data changes, and it's called model drift. So you don't want it to, good stale. You want a way to automatically keep it fresh and updated. But all these little tips along the way of just going through that process, and then you can run off on your own, and then you just ask for help here and there. But it's really involving that subject matter expert, both from the technical side of somebody that actually has done this and knows how to do it, and all the gotchas, to also the business me. So one of my favorite projects that I always like to mention was for an insurance company, because they're big on this stuff. And the database team, the capable, motivated, oh, we'll just do this and we're gonna wow them. So they come out with this model on, at the time it was for folks that insurance companies will recruit young folks to learn how to sell insurance. But it's expensive to do that, right? You bring them in, you fly them in, and you keep them there. It's very, very expensive. And they say, well, we need to reduce this cost. They're like, yeah, we're going to do that. So they choose this on their own, the database team. And we've said, hey, we really should involve the business in this. No. No. We're going to do it. No. We show the results, right? And they say, well, don't hire anybody in New York. And so the subject matter expert, like, God, this is really interesting. Like, well, that's because the law changed. You didn't include the legal claimant in your model. They're like, oh yeah. So it's one of those things that we did all this work and stuff. So they had to go back to the beginning and go, okay, well, yeah, I guess we had to involve this person we didn't want to involve because we don't like them, or from the get-go.
That's so funny. What I'm curious about, like, other things you've worked on, key learnings you've had in data projects that you want to share. I think that this would be really helpful.
No. Here's my favorite project was check fraud. I knew nothing because I just don't think that way. I don't think about scamming businesses.
Yeah.
My husband worked for a high-level rear admiral in the Navy. So it's like, we're really straight-laced and everything.
Yeah.
We had military security clearances and everything. I'm on this check fraud thing, and the guy was using spreadsheets, and he's like, wow, I just use this VLOOKUP table, and we do this batch script, and then it creates some business rules. And at the end of the weekend, I'll come in the next week, and then we're going to code this in SQL, or, in the SQL stored procedure for the guys in the app to do this. And I'm like, oh, there's a better way. And it was really fun. So one of my favorite parts of that was saying, give me your data. I'm going to play with it tonight. I know nothing about this. I'm going to come back tomorrow and at least give you some idea on what you should really be focusing on, what to focus on most here. And I came back and I used it as a decision tree at the time because, when you think about, again, explainability of models and understanding what the heck these lift charts mean and all these different types of metrics scientists use, I'm like, people they get the tree. I can say this is the most important thing because it's over here, and here's the second most. And I showed them the tree the next day, and I don't remember exactly what it was. It was like, the payer or whatever it was, new payee, the different things. And they're like, oh my God, you did that last night? Like, yeah, it's just like this little button you push and it crunches all the data and you can automate this. And they're like, oh, we got to do this. And they pull the CEO in and they're like, oh, just go do this. Stop the spreadsheet thing. And I'm like, yeah, the spreadsheet thing's pretty bad. But that was probably one of my favorite ones of just saying, you can make it happen. You don't need to be like this ridiculous 3-month project or 2-year ridiculous. Some things take a lot more time, but you can really make a quick impact just by being a little bit more efficient with some of these things, and being able to communicate it effectively to the business is really key. Because again, I think they still would have been messing with spreadsheets if we hadn't just showed them, bam, here you go. Here's with your data. Just a sample of your data, what the machine is seeing and how you can use it.
That's great. We got a shout out from Miko. She's in the house. Miko, what's going on? Good to see you. She is awesome.
Yeah, she's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. So, another key part to having a successful data project, aside from having, like you're saying, good people on the data science team that are communicating effectively from the start all the way through the project, just as important as the end and the results. What would be your advice for the business leaders? Because you were talking about in that article about stop talking gobbledygook.
Mhm.
There's gobbledygook on both sides, right? There's maybe from the data science perspective, maybe they're not using the right language, and also from the business side, the business leaders. There needs to be good communication happening on both sides. What
Right.
would be your advice for the business leaders that are working on a data project? They want to see it successful, um, but maybe they're just struggling to shepherd that project in the organization.
So one thing that's a lot of these are still classic when I look at these situations. They're classic, what I would call kind of business management consulting or business process optimization. You have the workflow and the business flows and understanding and really saying, okay, this is where the pain is, and we're gonna focus and isolate our efforts on this. Because what gobbledygook from the business side will be just optimize operations. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
So many different things. And,
Yeah.
good example, classic example in data science is optimized churn. Well, you can't control if someone's going to die. So, you got to look at specifically what things people can control. And it's things like that. The other thing when I think about classic business process and, putting this flow together is, again, using the right people and not overlooking some of the staff that can help them. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be a PhD level data scientist. And these folks that are, whether it's Tableau reports, Power BI, Click, these folks that are doing, they know the business metrics terms, how it works, and they also know the data. They're kind of the perfect conduit to say, well, I really know what Joe Smith, the CDO, really wants here, or the CXO really wants here. This is what's important to him, where these other folks won't know. So you almost think of them as translators, and that's why I liked the storytelling analogy is, they're really translating back and forth what's happening, and just, again, keeping those people involved, keeping it real, and not just saying, oh, just do it all. It's classic business management consulting and business process optimization. Just now we're applying AI and machine learning to it.
I love Miko just commented that optimize is her favorite brain dead word. I want to, Jen, what are some of the other like phrases and words you hear a lot that are kind of like they can mean so many different things and not specific?
Oh, one of my beefs right now is automated machine learning. So everybody, I had some friends call out, because I've been doing a lot of work with a company called Data Robot lately, and they go, oh, aren't you worried about Google, and aren't you worried about, Amazon's this or somebody else? I'm like, oh my gosh, technically we've had automated. If you're gonna get to that level, we've had little scripts and stuff you could automate for many years. There's so many different flavors of just everybody now calling themselves as automated. And oh my, they're so different. The solutions underneath it, the depth and the breadth are so super different. And just because you can like drag and drop a node or work through a wizard doesn't really mean it's automated. So that's probably one of my biggest beefs in that term and misunderstanding of all these different flavors of it. Another one certainly is AI. Everything's AI now. I'm like, it's the same darn stuff that I was doing, fumbling around with 10 years ago. I didn't know what I was doing, but it's just gotten easier, and we just put a different label on it. Or they call something AI that's just exploratory data analysis. So that's have the automated insights, and all that is correlations and some exploratory. There's nothing predictive necessarily about that. It's just we've just decided to throw a label on there. So that's probably another one that drives me crazy.
Miko's like amen and yawn. So Miko's like was saying wants to ask you about data artists. How would you define a data artist?
Oh, interesting. So when I think about it, I don't know if this is the right guy. I'm not going to say his name right. There's a guy in the Tableau world, and does she know his name? I think of his name. He builds these when I think of just an artist. On an artist level, he's creating these wonderful, he's combining visualizations and a story
Oh.
along with the data itself, but it also looks beautiful. I mean, we have data artists that things don't look beautiful, but they certainly can tell a compelling story or whatnot. But when I think of data artists, and I certainly think of that Tableau world initially, when they really, I don't even think they wanted, but I'm like, this is like Photoshop with your data. It's anything, you could do anything with it and finally communicate. But there aren't that many of them out there that are very, very good at this.
Yeah. Miko said she saw something on CIO.com about a data artist. But that is a beautiful thing to be able to do. Somebody who can have the data science skills to work with data, label it properly, and then be able to construct a visualization and then make it beautiful to tell that story. That is a special skill.
His name might be Johnny Walker. It's an old, very funny blog, The Bachelor style, on looking at all these BI and analytics.
Oh, that's cool.
And I played around with the themes of it. So on JenUnderwood.com, if you search for Bachelor, you'll see. And I talk about, I think his name's Johnny Walker, the data artisan. And I talk about, someone walking in with a Johnny Walker. That's their dashboard because it's just drop dead gorgeous type thing. But it was kind of a fun play on this concept of the artisan.
That's really, really cool. Do you have any, so we're talking about art and data, do you have any advice for those working with data that they're putting together their data visualization and they want to make it beautiful? They want to, they want to be able to tell a story, but also make it look beautiful and also be visually correct. Do you have any advice for people that are working on that?
Yeah, so the first thing, or one of the things, I shouldn't say not necessarily the first, but always to keep in mind, colorblind. I was surprised in developing product through the years, especially in healthcare, how many people are colorblind. And I think if you're not colorblind, you just don't realize that the people around you are colorblind. So, using some of those palettes, shades of color are important. There's different guidelines. There's a lot of how to choose the best visualization scorecards, cheat sheets out there. There's tons of them. There's good books on this topic on, storytelling with your data. And, these classes that folks give are super good. In fact, I've gotten a few books myself that really, really help, communicate effectively with data. And a lot of it's just very basic. It's just you may never have thought of it before.
Do you have any favorite books or people that are writing about data visualization?
So I do love Miko's, the work that she does in that space in her classes. Another one is Cole Neusmeyer. She's one of my favorites in that space. When I think about some other ones that are good, dashboard design, if it's dashboards, there's a book of the best dashboards. I gotta say the name right. I think Andy Kriebel was part of that project. There's a few, Steve Wexler was part of that project, but it's like the big book of dashboards is super good. Just saying, these are these different techniques. Information by design might be another one. If I were at home, I'd be grabbing and showing. I'm a massive geek and I still like physical books. So I buy these books. And you have Stephen Few and Edward Tufte. There's just all these really good books on visualization, and they're fun. They're great to put on your coffee table as well when you're done. But there's plenty out there. Quite frankly, it's a very hot topic.
What's your feeling about interactive dashboards?
Well, how do I feel about it?
Versus using just standard charts that are interactive.
So I think one of the most interesting things was coming from that world of crystal reports. And at the time I was a reporting services product manager and everything was static. And you'd have to mess around in Excel to do something kind of slickery. And then I came across Tableau and fell in love with it. And, at the time, ClickTech, it was ClickView was really, and I'm, messing around and I'm like, oh my God, I love that I can just explore. Oh my God, it's interactive. That changed the game. So I fell in love with, so now I see these tools or someone will show me, and I don't want to pick on any of the new vendors in this space, but I'm like, if I can't click and interact with this chart, it's an expectation. You will absolutely not be covered by my blog. You will get this gripey from me because now it's table stakes for me. If I can't explore, see the data, kind of ad hoc play around in here, if I'm just stuck with an image, it's going to irritate me.
Do you have any favorite types of tools for these interactive data visualizations when you make them?
Yeah, Yeah, so if you think about certainly there's a lot of leaders in this space. So you have there's the Tableau, there's the Click, there's Spotfire, there's SideSense has some good stuff. Typical Spotfire was certainly one of the earliest in the space and has a lot of advanced visualizations and analytics. I'm sure I'm going to miss some folks that are in here, but there's hundreds of them, quite frankly. Lots of them are wannabes that they're just out there, but the market's come pretty far with regards to being able to interact and explore your data. Even Excel's gotten a lot better. It's still not a Tableau per se, but it's gotten a lot more fun to work with and better in that regard.
Awesome. Well, Jen, I want to thank you so much for being our guest today in Data Talk. For those that don't know, Jen is traveling. She's actually in a hotel lobby. She is so committed to doing this interview. She's at a hotel lobby at a conference, and we're grateful that she was able to jump in today despite her busy schedule. So, Jen, thank you so much for being our guest. It was awesome learning from you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. For those that want to learn more, they want to connect with you, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Oh, probably JenUnderwood.com. So that, I have a contact form there. That's a good one. Obviously, you could use LinkedIn as well. I have some things there, but JenUnderwood.com is probably how most people find me.
Okay, wonderful. So everyone check out Jen Underwood. It's spelled UNDERWOOD. Google her, find her on LinkedIn, connect, and you can definitely learn more about the work that she's doing, her consulting, etc. Jen, thank you so much for being our guest, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks.